All right, welcome to another Wednesday Yachts Luncheon here at the St. Francis Yacht Club. I know that all of you miss Ron Young. I'm subbing in for Ron today. I can't quite do Ron Young, but I know that the first thing he does is he points outside and looks at the weather, the beautiful day and the view that we have from here. And when Ron does this, there's always a sunny day out there. He didn't leave me instructions as to how to make that happen, so we have a little fog, but the good news is the fog usually brings wind, so we're happy with that. So let me take a moment. Commodore Paul Heineken, if you would come up and greet this crowd. Thank you.
Always a pleasure to come and on the to the Wednesday Yachtsman's lunch. The flags, the board of directors, the members, all are delighted you're here. Guests, please enjoy your time here, and everyone online, we're delighted that you're making time to actually hear this incredible yachtsman, Bill Lee, today. So I'm looking forward to that. The only other thing that's happened around the bay, we had like 60 opties out in front for a heavy weather regatta last weekend. We participated in the Lipton Cup over at Richmond Yacht Club. They won the whole event, sailed fantastically well. St. Francis was in the hunt. And coming into the future, we've got Woody's event next weekend. So that's what's happening around the club. And thank you, Bill, for a moment on stage.
Thank you, Commodore. Let me take, before introducing our guest today, let me take a minute to remind you of upcoming topics for these Wednesday luncheons. About a month from now, July 24th, Stan Honey, another icon of the sailing world, will be here, and he's going to discuss the new event that is going to come into the 2024 Olympics, which is a two-person, a double-handed offshore boat where they go out for 3 days and 2 overnights, and it's a mixed crew, man and woman, on the crew. That's July 24th. On July 27th, Jennifer Bushman will be here. She is going to present her documentary film where she follows a big wave surfer in his quest for the elusive 100-foot wave, and along the way interviews a lot of people that are involved with the sea, the sustainable fishermen and other environmentalists. It should be a great film. July 17th, there is a, I'm sorry, that was July 17th. July 10th, Matt Larson of the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute will be here to discuss the interplay between whales and big ships and the latest policy developments, particularly focusing down south around the Panama Canal, where there are a lot of whaling and shipping incidents. July 3rd, Jeffrey Beaumont will be here. He is the son of Arthur Beaumont, who was the official artist of the United States Navy during World War II, and he's produced more pieces of art of American ships than any other official artist of the Navy. So he's going to be presenting on that. And finally, next week, June 26th, Ron Young, together with Jim Allen and Nazi Fino, are going to be discussing the history of yacht racing on San Francisco Bay, starting back, I guess, around the gold rush years, and then bringing it current. So that should be an interesting presentation by those three guys. With the housekeeping out of the way, let me introduce our speaker. Bill Lee is here. Bill needs very little introduction. I did ask him the traditional question that is asked at Wednesday Yacht Luncheon, and that is, how did he come to sailing? His first sailing was with his Uncle Fred when he was about 13 down in Newport Beach. He sailed on a Geary 18, and then shortly after that, his grandmother bought for him a Sabot, or a Sabot equivalent, he said. So there's some difference there. And then he joined the Sea Scouts. He went on to get a mechanical engineering degree. He worked in the defense industry for a couple of years, and then he retired to Santa Cruz, and the rest is the sailing history that we'll be hearing about. Um, Bill is a venerated icon of the sailing world. He's famous as the Wizard of Santa Cruz, and he's famous for making the phrase "fast is fun." He still has that as his phrase. He blossomed onto national fame in the 1977 Transpac with Merlin. He had designed Merlin, a 68-foot boat, which was an iconic change of the way boats had been designed for offshore racing prior to that. Merlin set a record of approximately 8 days, 11 hours, and a few minutes. That record held for 20 years for the Transpac. And that's the big event that catapulted Bill to go on to build the Santa Cruz 27s, the 40s, the 50s, the 52s, and the 70s. I am a proud owner of a Santa Cruz 50 that I got about 11 years ago. It's a wonderful, wonderful boat. We've taken it to Hawaii a number of times. I just love that Santa Cruz 50. Before I move on, with Bill today is Chip Merlin, the current owner of the boat Merlin. I suppose that's a little bit of wizardry in your own regard. You found a boat to match your last name. Will you stand up, please? Chip acquired Merlin less than 2 years ago. He's been refitting it, or as most boat owners know, pouring a lot of money into it over the last couple of years. And his goal is to sail all of the iconic offshore races around the world. And he's already done a good start on that. And he'll be sailing in the Transpac this year. Let me just say a few more words about Bill. I'm not going to go into his life history, but I feel that he has indirectly become such a big part of my life since I have the Santa Cruz 50. A couple of things. His boats, it's really phenomenal that the number of Santa Cruz boats, and particularly the Santa Cruz 50s and the Santa Cruz 52s, that are still sailing actively, regularly in the offshore races. For me, it has effectively become almost a one design class, because there are enough 50s and 52s on the West Coast to have our own starts and our own divisions. And that's been really great, because it means we're not always competing with the boats that rate better than we do, the J125s and the boats that plane at 12 knots, which we don't do. But just in the California Offshore Week that's been running for about 4 years now, there are always 6 or 7 50s and 52s in a division. The Transpac, the last Transpac that we did was 2017. There were 8 50s and 52s sailing in that race. And in this year, there are 11 50s and 52s, and that's not counting the 3 or 4 Santa Cruz 70s and all the Santa Cruz 70 knockoffs that will have their own division. And I want to recognize Bill with a personal thanks. When you buy a Santa Cruz boat, you have access to Bill as a resource. And he's very patient, and he's very giving of his time. And he's always willing, particularly when I was a new boat owner of the Santa Cruz 50, I would call him or email him with some question, whether it be the refrigeration system or the rigging, or most recently we had a discussion about the rudder post and things like that. Over the years, Bill always responds with a whole history of that particular item, and then his own recommendations and what the options are for things like that. And in fact, the first time we did the Spinnaker Cup to Monterey, I was talking to Bill, and I got all the strategic advice that he was willing to give me to how to sail to Monterey and how to get around the Monterey, the Montero hole that you have to get around to get down there. So just a model of patience and help to Santa Cruz boat owners. Bill Lee, the wizard, fast is fun. I'm going to turn it over to him.
Thank you. Okay, well, it's great to be here. Thank you, Commodore. Thank you, Bill. Um, Thank you, Tom Eamon, for putting all this on out to everybody. And yeah, brother Tom. Hi, brother Tom. I understand you're watching. Very good. Okay, so I'm the guy that came up with the sleds from Santa Cruz, and then I'm here today to really kind of talk about two things. One is some unique boats in Transpac. We got the old, we got the big, we got the fast, we got the small, we got the new, and then we have the updated. 94 entries this year in Transpac. Biggest Transpac ever. Previous record was 79 boats in, I think, 1979. You go to the Transpac website. It's a little hard to see on the screen, but there you've got Diamond Head in the background. You've got a trimaran passing the Diamond Head buoy. And one of the interesting things about really, really, really fast boats is there are no spinnakers. If you sail an ice boat or a land sailor, there is no spinnaker. And in fact, when you jibe, your sail lifts, you're going so fast. So these new fast, really, really fast boats, sails are very flat, and because you never sail with the wind astern. Okay, so the oldest entry in Transpac this year is Chubasco. And Chubasco was built for it's a 67-foot S&S design built by Wilmington Boat Works in 1839, just before World War II. Absolutely the finest money could buy in a CCA yawl. Was built for W.L. Stewart, longtime St. Francis member. This was the, there she is with the old cotton sails years ago. There she is sailing upwind. And after 78 years, she's on her third owner. And she had basically been maintained for years and years at Ardell's, but she sold recently and they had to kind of catch up with some structure and stuff, and she went over to Wayne Eddles in St. Pete in Wilmington and got all updated. So she is our oldest entry in the race. You can see from the drawing here, the water line's really pretty short. The new boats have much, much longer water lines. You can see how deep the hull is. You know, why would anybody ever try to surf anything to Honolulu with that deep a hull? But in the day, that was how it was done. And then here she is finishing the race off Diamond Head. You see actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sails. You see sails, 6 sails in the picture. A spinnaker staysail, a mainsail, and then what's known as a mizzen spinnaker, which is giant, and then the little mizzen, of course, hardly doing anything. But yawls did have their day. And again, a beautiful transom, wonderfully redone. Need to saw that off, put it upstairs next to the one for Dorade. Okay, now we're into the big boats. How big are these things? Now, these two boats are interesting because they race for different first to finish trophies. Transpac has 2 first to finish trophies, actually has 3. Oh, you're supposed to talk right close to this thing. Transpac actually has 3 first to finish trophies. The barn door for the first monohull to finish, the MERLIN trophy for the first monohull to finish with no new stuff. So to win the MERLIN trophy, it's no power winches, no canning keels, no water ballast, no Swiss Army knife appendages sticking out. To be first to finish and win the MERLIN trophy, you have to just be a basic old-fashioned boat. To win then if you have all the stuff, the new stuff, then you're also eligible for the barn door, or rather, you're only eligible for the barn door. So this is Rio 100. This picture, you can see how big, how wide the thing is. These things are just huge. There she is again. And there she is again. And again, these boats are fast enough that there's no such thing as pulling the spinnaker pole back. It's always sailing with the wind forward of the beam. Okay, here's the next one, and this is a drawing of Comanche. Now, to me, it kind of looks like a glorified International 14 in this drawing, but it's 25 feet wide. 25 feet wide, Comanche. 100 feet long, 25 feet wide. You can see the path for the canting keel. So the keel swings back and forth, and then it's got two dagger boards just forward of the mast, and they're just towed in very slightly. The one on one side is down, and then back aft she has the twin rudders, because at 25 feet wide, when the boat heels over, centerline rudder will come out of the water. And she was first to finish last year, sailed the course, I think, in just over 4 days. No spinnakers as we know it. Here's a picture of the boat with the twin rudders and the canting keel canted out to weather. You can see how far the keel is swung out. The dagger boards are not in this picture, which is of interest because for 2017 Transpac, they left them home, which will bring us to another picture here shortly. Here's a sail plan of her, Comanche again. There's Comanche sailing. Thing looks like an aircraft carrier. And then there's how wide she is. There's the 25 feet wide. I mean, you can put your Santa Cruz 27 crosswise across the back deck, and it hardly hangs out. Okay, so here's Comanche, and then there's a Santa Cruz 70 just below her. So you can just see, I mean, the rig is twice as tall on Comanche. And this picture was taken shortly after the start at 2017 Transpac. And as I said, Comanche had left her boards home because once you get around the west end of Catalina, you don't need them. And so she's gradually drifting down, making leeway down on Buenos Aires, which, because it's just got a normal keel in place, can point normal. And the Buenos Aires people were quite upset. And Stan Honey says, well, no, we were going to clear him. It's not a problem. And he was navigating on Comanche. But what the Buenos Aires people were really worried about, and very justified, was that once Comanche takes their wind, the boat can stand straight up. And then the Buenos Aires rig stands up into the Comanche sails, and then you big risk of losing your rig. And it is a real concern, but they made it. Okay, now we're on to the fast. How fast is fast? These are these 70-foot trimarans. We've got 3 70-footers. They're all mod 70s, and then 1 60-footer in the fast trimaran class this year. And these things are really fast and really, really well developed. For any of you that were here, Tom Seibel arranged for us to have some rides on a mod 70 out here one day, and they're just very impressive. The French have these things hugely figured out. And again, no such thing as spinnakers. They sail like ice boats. It's close hauled all the time. Now, this one, you look at it very, very, very closely, and you see 3 hulls, you see 3 bows, you see the weather bow, you see the main hull, and you see the leeward bow, and none of the boats in the water. Whoops, this is like a boat that can sail in the ocean that flies. So this is getting pretty exotic. And I don't know how many of you sailed to Hawaii. A couple 100-mile a day feels pretty good. These things will eat, a quarter of the course in a day, if not less. Okay, so now we're on to something really interesting. This is both the smallest boat in the race and the most innovative boat in the race. It is a Figaro 3 by Beneteau. Beneteau makes these things as little 32-foot race boats. The Figaro 2 that they sold bunches of was a water ballast boat. And this boat is actually foil stabilized. So you see a little hydrofoil sticking out on one side. It's retracted on the other side. And and that's so you can dock it. And when you go sailing, you put both foils out and they both take their turns working to leeward. 32-foot boat, smallest boat in the race, most innovative boat in the race. Here's another picture of it. Swiss Army knife boat, no question about it. But you see a foil sticking out of each side. The tip of it dips down into the water. Fixed keel, no canting keel, but again, fairly wide boat and twin rudders. I think this boat will be sailed double-handed to Hawaii this year. And Beneteau got 50 of these things out sailing so far. So, and I know there's one on the lakes going to enter the Chicago Mac race. So it'll be very interesting to see how they sail. Here's a picture of it actually sailing. You can see the foil out on each side. And then this picture is a little bit hard to see, but you've got a leeward foil. And if you just imagine that leeward foil, and if you got a sky hook, and you hook the sky hook to the leeward foil and lift up, you're doing three things. The foil's a little bit forward of the bow, so it's lifting the bow a little bit. The foil is way to leeward, so it's adding a huge amount of stability. And then this sky hook that lifted the foil is also making the whole boat lighter. So, strikes me as a way better deal than water ballast. Yes, 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 yes. If we back up there, you can see the foils are just forward of the mast, just forward of the center of gravity. So, whoops. Okay, so that's the Beneteau Figaro 3. Okay, so what else is new? Well, what kind of sails can you put on a Santa Cruz 70? Here is a Santa Cruz 70 with a modern square top mainsail. This is OEX, Santa Cruz 70 number 9, originally Silver Bullet, then Luna Barber. Had an 85-foot rig with great big masthead spinnakers. Interesting, for the 2007 race, they thought they were so smart, and they took lead out of the keel. And then one night before the wind came aft, it was really, really, really windy, and we had put more lead in the keel when we redid Merlin, and we absolutely got away from those guys. They sagged south and never saw them again. So that was good. Hi, John. But this is a great idea. It's a 14-foot top batten on the square top mainsail. It'd be really, really interesting to see how it works. Okay, on to Merlin. So this is a story many of you have heard before. This is the 1977 picture from before we set the course record. You all remember Carl Shoemaker. When we built the boat, Carl kind of looked at what we were doing and looked at us and said, those guys down in Santa Cruz, they don't have a clue. And worse yet, they don't know they don't have a clue. So this photo was before Transpac 77. This photo, not clear at all. This was the first ever single-handed race around the Farallones. And somebody took this, I think, from a helicopter out by the Farallon Islands right after the jibe. And I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but if you look close, the leeward runner is still hung up on the double reef main, still tight. And the jib isn't in. And this absolutely cured me of single-handed racing in big boats. Never again. It was really, really windy. It was 3 hours from the gate out to the Farallones, 2 hours back, all by myself. And once was fun. This again is a blurry picture. There are no clear ones. It was taken about 8 hours before the finish of Transpac. The boat's basically underwater. It's in a rain squall. There's lots and lots and lots of wind. We were about 8 hours out. A Coast Guard plane flew over, and we had had reporting problems the whole race. We didn't know whether us or Drifter were in front. And so the Coast Guard the Coast Guard plane took this picture of us. When they flew off, they left abaft their beam. So we said, we've got them, because they could see Drifter and we couldn't. And once they were across the once the plane took off abaft our beam, then we knew we had them, and we ended up beating them by 17 minutes to take 22 hours off the course record. So here's Merlin at Big Boat Series in 1979. We had, with the big mainsail, the boat was basically a little tender, and we'd find we had to reef on San Francisco Bay. And reefing was just, it was really a problem because the legs are so short. So instead of our regular 24-foot main boom, we went and borrowed a Santa Cruz 50 main boom at 17 feet and had a super skinny San Francisco Bay mainsail made. And we took 3 feet off our rating and didn't have to rate anymore. And it was wonderful. And we won our class at the Big Boat Series. So then the boat, I chartered the boat out quite a bit. And eventually 5 years later sold it. And somewhere along the line, the new owners fitted it with a canning keel. And they took off the original rather large slab keel, which wasn't heavy enough and had too much wetted surface and 2 or 3 other problems. But they fitted it with a canning keel, and then it got fitted and retrofitted a couple times. In 2001, they put a different deck house on it, painted it blue, became unrecognizable. This is sailing on the Great Lakes. And the paint job's really nice. Tricia Steele put the rainbows on. And so then the next time I saw the boat was October of 2014. We were at a U.S. sailing conference in Milwaukee, and Brian Adams said, "Hey, you want to go see your old boat?" So we went over and we saw the old boat. It was there in the warehouse. They hadn't sailed it since 2012. And it was just all ready to put together and go. Everything was there and sitting in this warehouse for 2 years. So then in August of 15, the phone rings, and it's one of the gang from the boat, and it says, "Well, you know, we'd make you a real deal on that boat." And so I talked to my wife, and the deal was good enough. So we went ahead and did it, bought the boat back, and here we are taking it apart in Milwaukee. We had them weigh every part. There's the canning keel coming off. You can see the levers on it that make it cant. And we had no intent of putting the canning keel back on. We just weighed the parts. And then it goes on a truck. Here we are at the truck stop in Kearney, Nebraska. I put this photo on just in case my Uncle Steve Lowe is watching in Kearney, Nebraska. Or my cousin. And then what's it look like when you drive a boat across the country? That's what it looks like when you drive a boat across the country. And Okay, now we got it here in Santa Cruz. Now what do? Here's this boat full of stuff. The box in the middle of the boat houses the canning keel machinery. Um, and then there's sails and giant spinnaker poles and parts and pieces and all kinds of stuff. So we start taking stuff out of the boat. Well, let's see. Okay, this whole side of the boat is all canning keel machinery, just giant cylinders and pumps and parts and batteries. And so we start taking stuff out. There's a dagger board case. There was a dagger board up forward because with a canning keel, once you cant the keel, the boat will go sideways unless you put a dagger board down. But once we were going to go to a fixed keel, we didn't need the dagger board case anymore. We kept taking stuff out of it. We took 1,800 pounds of canting related stuff out. Structure, wiring. I took 80 pounds of wiring out. Unbelievable. And so now that's what the middle of the boat looks like. You go back 2 pictures, 3 pictures. That's what the middle of the boat looked like. And we had to take it all the way down to that. And then we had Alan Andrews design us some new keel frames and a new keel. I would have done it, but I forgot how to do it all. And so we had to build that whole bottom back up, put big new timbers in, and the standards for running aground are much higher now, so we had to make it all super strong, which is good. And there's the new deep bulb keel we put on in place of the original fin. When we do the interview, you'll see a picture, you'll see the model over there, and you'll see the original fin keel, and then this is the keel we replaced it with. So we got it sailing, and here we are getting first to finish in the Spinnaker Cup in 2017, and then on to the race to Honolulu. Here we are at the start. Morgan Larson is driving. Morgan's dad was with me when we built the boat in 1977. And so here we are, the 40th anniversary of sailing Transpac and MERLIN again. And so Morgan came with us, and we let Morgan bring 3 people on the crew. So Morgan brought Carl Buchan from Seattle, and wow, super. And then he brought a fellow that he went to University of Hawaii with, a guy named Kia Ho. And Kia was about this tall, great big strapping Hawaiian. You really need those guys on big boats. And he also worked for the Lahaina Fire Department, so he was all mediced up and he could be our medic. So here we are at the finish line. That spinnaker pole you're looking down is 30 feet long. And this is one of many Sharon Green photos. And she hires a helicopter, and she just gets all kinds of pictures, and all you have to do is finish in the daylight to get all these superb pictures. Okay, so what's next? So we get the boat back from Hawaii, and you know, it came with pretty good sails. The only sail that we bought for it was the spinnaker you see in a lot of the photos with the rainbows. And the rest of the sails kind of came with the boat, and they were good enough. So, you know, we get the boat back to Santa Cruz, and it needs sails, and the winches have rod knock, and the instruments never did work, and the deck needs non-skidding. So we said, let's try for sail sign. And okay, so we got the pictures all together, and we got it up on Yacht World, and I got this one cryptic response that looked like spam, and it said, "Buy this boat." But I looked, and there was a phone number there. You know, when you get spam, you usually don't get phone numbers. So I called up, and sure enough, Chip Merlin was on the other end. And he says, "Oh yeah, my boat manager and I will be out next week." So we took him for a sail and did a deal. So what happens next? Take another 1,000 pounds out of the boat. Yep, the drawer banks came out, the cabin got shorter, the transom got opened up. All kinds of stuff came out of the inside that we hadn't gotten out. And the boat's gorgeous now. Here she is in Long Beach, white again, nice new pedestal with a nice twist in it. inboard chain plates instead of those big stainless jobs on the top sides, and the name painted on it correctly. Um, and lastly, I was asked to give everybody a pitch for the Tahiti race in May of 2000 and in 2020, and there's going to be a presentation reception here at St. Francis on August 22nd. Sure.
All right, Bill, come. Thank you so much. Come on over here, and we'll sit and have a Q&A session. I'm on the wrong side.
Have to get here without ending up on the ground.
Well, thank you, Bill. The title of the presentation was who can win the Transpac, and I haven't heard any bets from you as to who's going to do it. Is Merlin in the hunt for the barn door trophy, or who do you think?
Well, of course, Barn Door is the first to finish multi-hull trophy, monohull trophy, and Rio 100 is in there, and the TP52s have been a little faster than the Merlin style boats, so the Barn Door is pretty tough. But certainly for the corrected time trophy, Merlin absolutely is in the hunt. It's rather interesting. I did a lot of exotic boats, but there's lots of normal boats in the race. There's Cal 40s and J boats and Santa Cruz 50s and Santa Cruz 40s. Lots and lots of and then racer cruisers, a very wide range of boats. And it's actually rather hard to predict the winner of Transpac for a couple reasons. One, they use a staggered start. They start the slowest boats on Wednesday, I think, the Santa Cruz 52 50 speed boats on Friday, and then the fastest boats on Saturday. And because of the Catalina eddy, you either get away from the coast or you don't. And so it can make a huge difference on who's ultimately the overall winner by whether you were in the start that got you out of town the fastest. We had Durade win it 1 year, so Chabasco has to be in the hunt. You just don't know.
Okay. What's the you showed some of the pictures of the trimarans and the Maserati foiling. What's the long-term future of monohulls, given that a lot of the thrill seekers and a lot of the younger people who have faster twitch muscles than I do can sail those foiling boats?
Well, I think we're going to see old-fashioned monohulls for a long time to come, because as they get faster, they get less comfortable. And going to Hawaii on a TP52 is like going to Hawaii on a 49er. They're wet, they're uncomfortable, and so I think we're just going to have regular, ordinary boats for a long time to come. And Transpac uses ORR for a rating rule, which does a very, very good job on a very wide range of boats.
Speaking of the rating systems, how does the ORR rating compare when you got the old style boats versus the new style boats? Is that, you said it does a good job on a wide range of boats, but I always wonder about the newer boats getting a favorable rating.
The basic technical of the newer boats, I don't believe gets a better rating. One of the things about newer boats is everything's new at once. The sails are new, the crew's enthused, all that stuff. So newer boats tend to be a little bit faster for that reason. And then the newer boats, the race boats, the newer race boats have easier to work with deck layouts, and that helps a little bit. But as far as the basic rating of the boats goes, ORR kind of takes enough things into account that it's pretty level playing field for any, they have to be well sailed, they have to be well prepared, but then it's a pretty level playing field. I
know there's been discussion for the St. Francis's Rolex Big Boat Series about the ratings, the ORR ratings. Are you involved in that? Are you following that?
I'm not immediately involved, but I am on the ORR committee. And I know right now they're talking about how do you correct for currents.
Okay.
And in fact, one thing I was going to mention to them is if you have the perfect slack water day, it's not a perfect slack water day. You've got old flood out in the middle and new ebb on the beach, and you can do pretty good. You might even be able to beat the time of no current at all.
Okay.
So, but yeah, looking at how do you correct for currents.
Are they also looking at correcting for the wind speed? Because a lot of the older ORR programs were centered around 12 knots of wind, and we see 25 or 30 in the big boat series.
Well, what they do is they set up specific courses for the big boat series. And as long as the race committee grabs those courses, they'll have the wind range that the race committee provided to set the handicaps up for the courses.
Okay. I don't want to monopolize all the questions. So anyone in the audience, grab a mic. Oh, do we have an online question?
Yeah, we have several, actually.
Ah, okay. Well, let's go to the online questions then.
Yeah. There are a lot of people watching online, and it's of interest is that our first sign-on was from a junior sailing class from Poland.
Great.
They're having a watch party.
Well, I wish I could say hello in Polish.
I do too. And as just a reminder, be sure to read all the comments because there are lots of really wonderful comments, and we won't get to all of them. But Jack Everett, who once did a delivery on Merlin, wants to know from the audience how many sailed on Merlin, how many owned Merlin, or a Santa Cruz, one of Billy's boats, and how many are here that are going on Merlin for this year's Transpac, besides Chip, of course.
So let's start with that question. Anyone else sailing on Merlin? Bill, are you sailing on Merlin?
I think Chip is the only one here sailing to Hawaii on Merlin this summer.
Okay. And how about other people sailing the Transpac this year in the audience?
Paul?
Right, Paul is, yeah.
There we go.
There we are. And were there other questions?
How many have sailed on?
How many people in the audience have sailed on Merlin? Not with that Joy in the back there. Yeah. There we go. Paul, you had a question?
No, but I'm on a Jeanneau 52 with teak decks and a bow thruster and a very good rating.
Well, very good. Now all you have to do is be well prepared and well sailed.
All right. Other questions?
Hi, I'm Gordon Danielson. I've always been fascinated with Merlin. What I'm interested in is how much better was the swinging keel compared to the original Merlin design, and then how much of an improvement was there when you put your newer keel on to take off the old swinging keel, and what's the expectation for the current new configuration?
Well, that's a very good question. And if the camera can get over to the Merlin model here, we have a model of Merlin here in the original configuration, and you can see that the keel is quite large. It's just a fixed fin keel, Doug Peterson style keel of the era, quite a large keel, quite high wetted surface. The canting keel that they put on never seemed to work right on this boat. So whether it was faster or not, it didn't have more success with the canting keel. And it didn't cant quite far enough, and it just was never right for the boat. And then with the new keel we put on it, which is just a very modern fixed keel, very similar to what's on any of the fixed keel race boats. We went from 8.5 feet to 10.5 feet. Same total weight, 10,500 pounds, but the ballast much lower in the bulb. and then much lower wetted surface. And I think it's the fastest with the newest keel. And we're probably 30% more stability with the latest keel. And that's been a huge help because the boat always a little bit tender.
I should point out at Bill's suggestion, we have the model of Merlin here. If you want to come up afterwards and look at it, there's a model of Samba Pati sitting on the bar, which was a Transpac 52 boat, and there's a model of a Cal 40, which was before the Bill Lee line of boats. There was the Cal 40 was a heavily sailed boat in the Transpac. They still have some sailing in the Transpac this year, I imagine, and that's out in the lobby. Point to the model. So if you want to look at that, that has the type of keel that Bill has now put on Merlin.
Yes, and very effective. Yeah, for this year's Transpac, for people that sail reasonable boats, we have 6 Cal 40s, 3 Hobie 33s, 3 J125s, 6 more J boats, 6 Santa Cruz 52s, 4 Santa Cruz 50s, 3 Santa Cruz 70s, and then just a very wide range of production and custom boats. And we have 2 multi-hulls that don't fly. We've got a Lagoon catamaran and 1 other catamaran.
Good. That's a wide range. Lance, you had a question.
So is it true that Chip purchased Merlin because every time he typed his name into Google, he was really tired of finding pictures of sailboats instead of himself? And was he able to negotiate a special Merlin to Merlin discount?
You will have to ask him.
No, this is a boat that I've wanted to buy since I was 19 years old when I first read about it in Sports Illustrated. And Billy is a boat broker for a reason, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist with my last name Merlin, the reason why I might want to buy this iconic boat. So, but it's been a joy to have ever since, and we're looking forward to it this Transpac race. And Bill's been a big help. He really is all the way through. He's been providing information to us, suggestions to do, and a lot of the changes that we've made to it have been the result of what Bill has suggested. So if we do well, it's because of Bill's ideas.
Jeff, as long as you have the mic, what of the ocean races have you done so far, and what's on the horizon for doing that?
The ones we did so far, right after we first got it, we raced to Cuba, and while we were smoking cigars and drinking rum in Cuba, everybody else was 90 miles behind us in the Keys. We then raced from St. Petersburg to Isla Mujeres, and it was the 50th running of that race, and we set a course record, beating the monohull record by 7 hours and beating the multi-hull record by 2. Then we went on to Newport versus Bermuda, raced that. While we finished first in class, we finished last on corrected time for a number of reasons. And then we started the Mackinac race, and unfortunately the boat right behind us had the crew member who fell off, and we spent an afternoon looking for that gentleman who unfortunately was lost at sea. We then 3 weeks after that raced in the Verve Cup, and we won that as well too, and then shipped it back to Long Beach for its retrofit.
With all that record, it came back to be rebuilt, a retrofit for the upcoming Transpac. It's even faster.
We'll find out. We'll certainly find out. But we did want to keep the boat back to its closer to its original design and paint, and I hope we've accomplished that, as well as the rest of the ideas that Bill and Alan Andrews had with respect to the design of the boat.
Good day, sports fans. Welcome to sunny Long Beach, California. First sea trial of the mighty yacht Merlin. Got some of the basics out of the way. Now trying a little bit of soft trim upwind sailing. Really happy with what we're seeing so far. Our sail designer, Alan Andrews at the helm.
Working attorney, and I'm up here with Bill this afternoon, but other people are getting it ready. We'll start our practice this Sunday.
Okay. Other questions? Any more online questions? Okay.
Hello, I'm Kim Dessenberg, and I was surprised that in Bill's introduction he didn't mention that my oldest sister was one of your classmates in the early 60s at Newport Harbor High School.
Yes. And I do remember her, but I don't actually remember you, but you must remember me.
And I want to know where we can place our bets for this year's race.
I'm not the bookie.
All right, another online question.
Chris Welch, is it true that Ragtime was calipered to design Merlin as a rounder ragtime?
Chris Welsh, current owner of Ragtime.
That's correct.
Hi, Chris. You know, I sailed the La Paz race on Panache in 1973, and Ragtime was there, and we were in La Paz, and I remember being on the wharf there, and they were trying to pump fuel, and this is Mexico, and there was a 55-gallon drum of fuel, and they had a power cord with a 4-box on it sitting on top of the 55-gallon drum of fuel, and they didn't have a plug for the pump. They were just trying to stick 2 wires in the outlet to make the fuel pump work. And I says, this looks unsafe, but we're in Mexico. And I look over, and here's Ragtime. And this is 1973. We basically, started Merlin in 76 and finished her in 77. So I says, we ought to be able to do a better job than that, because Ragtime had already been twice first to finish in Transpac. She was first to finish in 71, first to finish in 73. Both times beat Windward Passage, which of course was a vastly larger boat. But obviously the shorter, very, very light boat with a smaller rig, once you're going to sail 90% of the course downwind, was a pretty good bet. And so, yeah, we very closely looked at Ragtime, and obviously, amongst other things, you'd have to beat Ragtime to Hawaii. So we did go with a little bit bigger boat. We went with 65 feet. And then one of the interesting things, if you've got, a keel and a mast and a few drums of resin, and you're going to build a boat, well, what's the fastest shape? Well, you can build a short, wide boat or a long, skinny boat. But if you only have the keel and the mast that you can afford, it's much more efficient to take the rest of these materials and make them into a long, skinny boat. And then we're 12 feet wide, because that was what we could turn over inside our shed. But yes, Ragtime was very much an early influence. Oh, great.
Bill, if I may.
Yes.
I have to wait to be called on.
Yes, Tom.
I just want to note that, Bill, Lee, you have a huge following. I think we have the most number of people online, Julia, that we've had, with the possible exception, Commodore, of Terry Anderlini, of Commodore Anderlini's Roast. And that got a whole lot of St. Francis people watching. But I just want to note that we have people not only in Chattanooga, Cape Town, South Africa, Sweden, as Julia mentioned, across Europe, your brother, Brazil, Australia, New Zealand, and there are lots of comments on here, and that's not unusual. We often get that wide of a dispersion of people watching, but today, Montreal, today is particularly cool, and I think it's a real tribute to you, Bill. Yeah. Fast is fun.
I had one last comment, Bill. I noticed you're not on the Merlin crew this year. You did sail it in 2017, but how are you feeling about these long offshore races that you've been involved with all your life?
Well, I'm 76 years old, and I know that the course to Hawaii is out there, but you don't have to sail it every time.
If you want to sail on Deception sometime, we'll take some racing around the bay here.
Very nice boat.
Yeah. Any other audience questions?
Malta is also
Malta is.
Rear Commodore of the Royal Malta Yacht Club.
Great. All right. Thank you all for coming. And Bill, thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
sharing
Bill.
your insight with us.